All right, Charles, here we go. We could have had some sound effects, but I don't know if there's music that goes with this movie. I've never seen this movie.
I don't need to hear the sound of a big poop. But anyway.
In Greenwich Village. But we did this because the poop in chief is apparently coming to town.
Tomorrow. And, you know, he may have to cancel his trip, actually, because there's a big storm coming in.
But it's going to be like 45 degrees. It's so warm out now. How could there be a storm?
Well, we're going to zig and zag it a little bit here. But, I mean, the same team that has told us that we have 9.5 years left or the planet's going to blow up can't predict the weather 6 hours out, 12 hours out. But we've had various and sundry views of the weather. I began to see 24 hours ago reports of a massive storm coming in to as far south as Texas, but going all the way up through the center, kind of a little bit further west from where we are. But oftentimes when those storms start, they affect neighboring areas, travel patterns, and down, especially in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. Yeah, here we go. This is an old one. But this one, a treacherous mix of ice and snow threatens more than 100 million people 43 minutes ago from CNN. But what do they know?
Right. Yeah, they're busily trying to hide their secret relationships.
We'll get into that in a sec. But here's Biden in theory. His original idea was to react, probably to deflect the majorly criticism that is coming as a result of the execution, I would argue, of the two policemen who came to report on a household disturbance problem, only to be, I think, murdered, but we'll figure out in time what really happened. And the grieving widow, and I think it's really difficult, it must be horrible just to deal with the loss of your husband, and I don't know if she has children with him or not, but to then have to go up and address a crowd of thousands of people at St. Patrick's.
Takes a lot.
I'm not certain I could do it, and I have a certain amount of practice, but somebody who doesn't have any practice in that moment.
Public speaking.
Giving a speech, I only heard snippets of it, that was just
powerful.
Riveting. It was absolutely riveting, and I'm sure whatever sentient bozos remain working in the Biden administration, somebody said, hey boss, listen, okay, we got to clean you up. We'll put the special pants on,
rubber,
prop you up. You know, you can have the ice cream off to the side. We'll put the things in your head so you can but you got to show up and show compassion. So instead of doing that, apparently he's going to come tomorrow and he's going to talk about the need for gun control.
Yeah.
And again, I think that once you have a right, once it's established that you have a natural right, or in this case, a constitutional right, to keep and bear arms, you do not give that right up, unless you are a Joe Ron. You just don't do it. I mean,
we don't have it here in New York City, though, right? I mean, it was just a few months ago or weeks ago even that they were talking at the Supreme Court about constitutional carry here in New York City.
Right, but you look at it and you have, honestly, the people who are pretending that they're the smart people and have pretended for a long time they know everything and they need to educate our children. We can't educate our children. They don't seem to understand that, I think, my long years on the planet now, I think that certain things about people do not change. I think if you are an inveterate criminal, right, you have been arrested, you've gone to prison 25 times. No amount of kumbaya,
right,
Dr. Phil, Joe Biden giving you a lecture, Kamala Harris sending platitudes your way, or Pete Buttigieg telling you about his new theories. None of that is going to change because, some all-knowing lawmaker of either party has got a program or a system, whatever. And so in the balance of thinking that the founders had a long time ago, it was, in the past, when the monarch has made it difficult or the leader of a country has made it impossible for people to defend themselves, what happens is the countries get invaded because people around the country look at this and say, these pukes don't have any defenses, and we're just going to come in, the Vikings, the French, the Germans, whatever, we're going to come in, invade the territory, and we need to encourage responsible members of the population to keep and bear arms so that enemies of the nation, when they decide that they want to take on America, will think 5 times as hard about, so you took out New York and Washington, D.C., you come try to take Appalachia. Come try to take Texas and these other places where there are a lot of guns. And
Didn't a Japanese general famously say they don't want to invade the United States because everybody has a gun?
Right, and also it's war. Not only do they have guns outside New York City in particular, but people are trained and comfortable using them.
Right.
And so when it would be one thing if this were, and even then I wouldn't believe him, Albert Einstein or somebody who had won an Olympic gold medal as a sharpshooter said, I've thought about it and I've fired off 1 million rounds of ammunition and, I don't really think that everybody in this country needs to have a gun. I think there's zones in the country where people like to hunt and there are bears out there in the woods or whatever. You need to defend yourself. Maybe there it's fine. In the metropolitan areas, we're not going to encourage people to have guns, but the countervailing arm of that is that any thug using a weapon, especially an illegally obtained weapon, to commit a crime, you go away forever. That's it. You get one shot, you're done. But you have real defense attorneys, and you give the person you're innocent till proven guilty. But if you're found guilty of using an illegally obtained weapon inside the United States, inside a portion of the United States of America, I don't know if it would be a federal law or a local law or whatever, you're done. And we don't do that. We hand them out like candy. We don't seem to care. It's a badge of honor for some of these people.
But they let them out without bail.
Right.
And there was one guy who said to the cops in the court, I'm going to shoot one of you as soon as I get out. Right. And they're like, okay, see you.
Yeah. Yeah, so we certainly don't need, Mr. Howdy Doody getting on Air Force One and coming here, in his clown suit and trying to explain to us that we need common sense gun control to make stuff better in New York City. No, let's start with forget about having people who are non-citizens vote in New York State or city. Just forget about that. Yeah. Forget about having an open southern border. Forget about having school systems that don't barely teach you anything relevant. Forget about a lot of these, in quotes, reforms popularized by AOC and Bernie Sanders and other things. If you really wanted to make New York City hum, what you do is you say, you know what? We're going to turn New York City into Hong Kong before the communists took it over.
What do you mean?
We're going to lower the tax rates dramatically so that rich people will bring a lot of capital into this maybe city or state, and we are going to encourage companies. New York used to be the manufacturing capital of New York State, the manufacturing capital of the whole country. If you go back into the 50s, I think it was, there was one estimate or another that roughly 50% of the manufacturing activity in the United States of America occurred in New York State.
Wow.
And so you go and you say, listen, come on back, forget these long supply lines, forget the need to have your money offshore in some country that could be taken over by China tomorrow. Come here and we'll lower the capital gains tax rate for people who employ workers consistently for more than a number of years to zero. We're not going to give tax breaks away. We're out of money. We're not going to give tax revenues away, but we will give you a chance in future to keep a large percentage of the profits that you generate and develop employment incentives for the private sector and tell all these program leaders who invent these fancy ideas. I mean, I was walking up here today and I walked by 2 or 3 supposed Con Ed work sites where for every one worker holding a shovel, there were like 3 people on cell phones, 2 others talking around, so others with their cars idling.
Yeah, they just set up the fence, open the thing, put on the helmets, and stand there all day, and they think they're working on something.
And those are the people who are deigned to show up at the work site. Lord knows how many other people.
Right, 15 guys on the payroll who aren't there.
15, we'll be lucky if it's 15.
But now you're hitting on it though, Charles, because this corruption. But just to take a step back for the gun issue, I don't think I agree with you on that. I think what we need today is what we've needed all along. If you are, an adult or whatever the law is about when you get to have a gun according to the Constitution, you should be able to have it. Like I should be able to legally have a concealed carry so that when I walk around, any random criminal sees me, and instead of saying, 2 old white guys, let's get ready to get sacked, he could be thinking, that guy's jacket looks like he might have a gun in there. Let me go bother somebody else. And I think it would take pressure off the police because instead of having maniacs running around the park, give me $1, give me money, give me this, give me that, the second you stand up, it doesn't even need to be concealed carry. It's just take it out in the red dot, and it's like, get away or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, I don't have a firm view on it. I just think the one direction we definitely do not want to go into is the direction of, we have a government in place, frankly, a government going well back under Republicans and Democrats that has tyrannical tendencies.
Right.
Right. We have under George W. Bush the Patriot Act provisions. How has that worked for us?
Bad.
And they're still in place. This new mask mandate on planes, they're saying today that it's going to remain forever.
What?
The mask mandate.
I told you I'm never going on a plane again.
Right. And so these tyrannical impulses on behalf, exhibited by the people who want to rule everybody, that's not going to change. And, you know, it's just so distressing to see. I mean, I suppose I could live with, I have no choice, obviously, in either case, but I could live with a tyrant who is actually intelligent. But I could live with it because I have no choice, right? But a tyrant who's an imbecile.
Well, we might die, actually, as a result of that.
Might. I mean, we're careening towards conflict after conflict. I mean, the other thing we need to talk about is Ukraine, which we didn't have the stories up for that, But anyway, the art department has done a fantastic job. I hope Joe Biden, I wonder where he's going to go in New York City. I mean, I hope he doesn't make the mistake of checking out the art gallery to see how many paintings have been sold.
I don't think he would go there. He's supposed to not know anything about the smartest crackheads' business dealings, so that would kind of blow his cover.
Well, maybe we should jump right into that. I mean, those are the recent stories by John Solomon and written by Andrea Woodberg as well, that information has now come to light that that's absolutely not the case, that Joe, new information has come to light, that Joe knew intimately about business dealings. And in addition to that, that remember when Joe said that he fired a crooked prosecutor?
No, he didn't. He fired the good prosecutor who was investigating his son. Right,
and so there's new information that's come to light on that one, too. At the same time, the New York Times has got people who've asked for made Freedom of Information Act requests, which have to be complied with in a short period of time. And the official response was, forget the short required response, you'll get your papers in 2023 after the election. So it seems to me that where we had sort of a steel curtain, or whatever you want to call it. Oh my God, let's not give him airtime.
People are going to want to know what we're saying that about. This is a shocking thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But the unified lockstep group of particularly CNN, all in anti-Trump, now in New York Times, that something has operated now to change or to eliminate the cloak of invulnerability that Joe Biden and his family had. I mean, from every different direction now, it seems that there are vectors that are going against the likely security of Joe Biden to remain as president of the United States.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw a couple of things talking about how unlikely it is that Kamala Harris would be the Supreme Court pick. And it just seems to me, here we go again, Biden meets senators. Oh, well, this is just saying he's meeting with Kamala Harris to talk about the Supreme Court. But I saw some article that said that it's unlikely, and I feel like they're seeding the ground to be like, man, we're going to stick her in the Supreme Court. Make Hillary the vice president, and then croak the next day.
That's his plan.
I don't know if it's his plan, but that seems to be the plan.
Yeah. Now, let's just stop right there for a second, okay? Is climate change the number one threat to the world, according to the progressives?
Well, let's throw a log on the fire and talk about that.
Is this like a wood-burning fire? I mean, you would think somebody would say to the guys, if you want your $93 trillion plan, why don't we set an example? In New York State, effective soon, you're not allowed to burn wood.
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So it's soon.
Like if you're having a bonfire on the beach, you're not allowed to do that? If you have a campfire in the woods?
Bonfire on the beach? What planet do you live on? You're not going to do that.
I mean,
you're not allowed to do that.
I have done that within the last 10 or something years.
Within the last 10 years. You're not going to be allowed to do that anymore.
So you're saying you're not allowed by law to go into the woods and collect dead trees and chop them and burn them?
I believe, you could Google it, I read that in New York State there's a new, I guess it's a law that is, I think, banning the burning of wood. Now maybe not everywhere, but yeah, there you go.
A ban?
In October.
My goodness. What is going on in Albany?
Not much.
Making people eat sausages, firing the dog, and voting on wood.
No wood. No wood for you.
Reduce greenhouse emissions.
But this, where I used to have a place, not near Millbrook, but further north in there, this was an area where about 105 miles north of New York City, where the people who live there year round, they live off the land. I mean, they cut wood down, they use it, they chop it up, they store it away for the winter, they use their wood stoves to heat in the winter, and then what they do is they go ahead and during hunting season, they're shooting anything that legally can be shot, they're shooting. And deer, I mean, they shoot deer.
And jerky and
they live off that
everything.
Stuff.
Yeah, no, I know.
And so you're...
That's misconceptions about the wood burning law.
Yeah, but it's going into effect. And so, here's Mr. President Numbskull in the White House.
Burning wood?
Burning wood.
Yeah, he's pretty out of touch, Charles, I have to say. I mean, back to the reason he's coming to New York, which is our theme today. You're right. The problem with gun control laws is that the person who shot these police officers was not abiding by laws. So making new laws doesn't seem to have any impact on that person or people like that. What I'm saying is if they actually would enforce the law in New York, including the Constitution, and every law-abiding citizen, including you and I, if you should choose to, would walk around with the gun, I think the criminally minded would be aware, even though the cops aren't around, if I do something untoward, any one of these people could shoot me, so why don't I keep myself in line?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I know that in Switzerland, for example, every, I believe, adult, it might even be, I don't know if it's adult or adult male, there was a time frame where had to keep a gun in their house, had to go through gun safety training programs. I mean, my first experience with a gun was, I think, I was maybe 8, and summer camp. And the first thing we did at this religious summer camp, a Christian summer camp, was go to the gun range. I thought, this is pretty cool.
That is.
Forget Bible class.
Jesus says, shoot.
No, but the thing that we were impressed, at a young age, we were impressed just how dangerous guns were. And that has instilled in me, ever since then, healthy respect. I remember, this was a different era, obviously, back 5 centuries ago in modern time scale, when little boys and girls would go to Washington Square Park and everybody had a plastic gun. You're shooting guns and bows and arrows, playing cowboys and Indians and doing all this kind of stuff. And each little kid was trying to get a bigger gun, bigger plastic gun or whatever.
This was the day when you could send away cereal box tops and get a rifle.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then to actually go to summer camp and be presented with the opportunity to shoot a real gun.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of cool. But I think when you talk to people who are experienced with guns, they're super careful about them.
Yep.
I mean, really, because the reason I'm slightly of a different mind on everybody carrying a gun is guns go off accidentally, and you could slip and fall. And
yeah, but cars accidentally accelerate. All kinds of accidents happen. The problem that we're faced with is not a gun control problem. It is a crime problem, and that goes for street level crime and all the way on up to Albany with the Cuomos and all of these different people who are, I really have a very strong sense, Charles, that if we started to dissect these deals that were going on as far as construction at the Javits Center, And what I'm learning now about how these tax abatements work, where the developer gets a tax abatement by going and building some low-cost housing thing elsewhere in the state. Then we have this charity with the Cuomo sister that's dealing with low-cost housing. This whole thing with Zucker at CNN, and there's some connection between the girlfriend and Chris Cuomo or whatever it is. The whole thing reeks of blackmailers sort of blackmailing each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when you, at the heart of it, there are various strands of corruption in this corrupt state, but one important one.
Variants.
Yeah, different Omicron variant.
Yeah.
But one of the strands is the whole requirement to get some set of regulators or whatever to grant you permission to have a variance from zoning or to build here and there or to get a permit or whatever. All these special restrictions. Including if you own land in New York City and you want to build a certain type of structure, but it's only zoned for a different type of structure. And the decisions that the politicians can make can be decisions that put 100 million, maybe even in certain cases, billions of dollars in the pockets of the developers, and the governor's making 150,000 or whatever he's making.
Right.
It's pretty easy to see how
you can work
quids
that out.
would become quos, operating through things like a Cuomo Foundation or a Clinton Foundation or who knows what kind of foundation. But it's interesting to me, if we go back to, I don't know, before Christmas last year, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer was bloviating and talking about how we had to get the voting rights thing passed to honor Martin Luther King, and people were making noises about how we have to invade Ukraine, and other people were saying we're going to build back better and all. I mean, in just scant days, it's common sense people who are not interested in politics, really independents, I think mostly, are looking at this team of idiots in both parties and say, enough, you've done enough pain. Stop the beatings, morale will improve without you doing anything more. And that's why we're jumping around a little bit today, but that's why when you look at the trucker convoy in Canada, I was seeing reporting that the popularity of the Trudeau government has dropped 15 points.
Wow.
In a short period of time. And people are kind of liking what the truckers are doing.
Yeah.
And liking that this idiot, Tucker just destroyed him last night.
He went into hiding. Yeah, but then they said he has COVID or something?
He's COVID, and that he issued a long tweet where he was talking about how the truckers are racist, homophobic. And
racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, and mean. It's like, wait a minute. Right. What have they done any of that? You're just getting every single bad thing in a tweet.
Right. And Tucker then said, well, that's, it's clear that, we should listen to somebody who's got such a keen sense of how people believe, what they believe. They're so morally grounded. And he puts up a picture of Justin Trudeau in blackface.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Justin Trudeau, I think Pee Wee Herman would be more credible today than Justin Trudeau.
I don't think enough people know enough about Justin Trudeau's father and his history as a
communist,
as a socialist, the Fabian socialist. It's interesting, there was all that discussion about Black Lives Matter inappropriately using funds to buy houses. There was far less attention put on the fact that the house that they bought, where was it, in Toronto? That house was the mansion, it was the former headquarters of the Canadian Communist Party, which Pierre Trudeau was the head of. And I think that has significance beyond just being a $6 million house purchase. It strikes me as a Marxist, communist kind of a let's recapture our assets, is the resurgence. They keep saying Putin wants to recreate the USSR, but people that we speak to that seem to know more about it say that that's not the case. He seems to want to hold those to account who stole the resources of the USSR.
Yeah. And he wants the agreements. I mean, this is one of the reasons I wrongly supported the Iraq War, was that I felt that we should have a system in place where international agreements had teeth and they meant something. And Saddam Hussein had signed a surrender, or whatever you want to call it, armistice agreement, wherein he pledged to do certain things.
Not mess with Kuwait.
Which he did not do on numerous occasions, having been warned, you better stop doing this.
But didn't somebody go there and tell him, go ahead and invade it?
All right, well, that's the mixed message. That's our vaunted State Department. And she probably had too many Bloody Marys that morning. But
or maybe it was a plan to get ready to get sacked.
Could be. But anyway.
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about this, Charles. Or maybe I did tell you, but the account has been temporarily suspended because I said that Whoopi Goldberg is fat and ignorant, which she is. She's ignorant of the fact that irrespective of what I or anybody else thinks about the Holocaust, Adolf Hitler thought it was about race, and for Whoopi Goldberg to sit there and tell us that it's not is the definition of ignorance. And for her to be as large as she is the definition of fat. So I've fact-checked both of these statements, and they were accurate. So I'm not sure why Twitter took it down.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine. I mean, I remember I saw some headline a while back. There's an economics professor known as Dr. Doom, Nouriel Roubini, and I saw that he was going to go on The View. And, I mean, I'm not sure I'd even... Most of the times I answer emails on appearances and stuff like that, but if a producer from The View said, would you like to go on The View, I would probably answer back, never contact me again. It's a waste of time, that show.
Well, but wouldn't it be good to go on there and challenge them?
No.
This is the best thing since Neil Young, Charles. Whoopi Goldberg is threatening to take her toys and go home. I think they should let her do it. Obviously, this is going to take a lot of contractual considerations, contractual parameters into consideration, but she's livid and threatening to quit The View over her suspension.
Again, I mean, this is somebody, first of all, I mean, you get in trouble. Rachel Dolezal got in trouble for pretending to be black, right? Here's somebody who has spent a long time and earned a lot of money pretending, at least adopting a Jewish name.
Yeah, no one's been speaking about that.
Right? And if you really wanted, I mean, this is somebody who should be concerned about her weight at this age, with COVID running around. If it is true that one of the chief comorbidities for COVID is obesity.
It's one of the chief morbidities for everything.
Right. But I'm just saying, COVID in particular, I mean, here's somebody who has had a lot of airtime until recently, has the ability to pull the, if you disagree with me, you're a racist card anytime she gets disagreed with, which is not frequently enough. This is somebody who really, I mean, she should consider quitting. Not.
They should fire her.
Yeah. Look, she probably gets more money if she gets fired.
If she's fired, right. That's what I'm saying. That this is now a big contractual battle of like, how do I get the rest of the $20 million or whatever it is that they owe her? But I mean, it also shows that she's an insincere hypocrite, and whatever apologies she gave 2 days ago, she's livid that they're talking about firing her. If she were truly contrite, she would say, you know what? Based on what's been done to other people who have made similar comments, I understand ABC's position, and I accept whatever comes of this, instead of saying, I'm livid. You're livid means you think you had a right to say what you said, and it was okay to say, but you'll apologize just to get people to shut up.
Yeah. Again, I mean, The View is, I generally don't watch television at whatever time The View is on. I mean, I've got many better things to do than watch the portion that purports to be content and then the stupid advertisements that would be interrupting everything.
Ridiculous.
It is. So the next story over, though, the Black Lives Matter, is one we should spend a little time on. I forget, Jason, when we first landed on the issue. I think it was in May of 2020.
It was like the day they appeared.
Well, but we were, I think, talking about it before we went up to Columbus Circle and Hawk Newsom and whenever that was. But we made the point, and here, I have no problem if a charity can be structured to advocate on an issue with which I wholeheartedly disagree. If more power to the charity if they can do it properly. But at a minimum, if you're going to go and say that you are a charity and that you care about helping, look at this number. You care about helping advance the lives and prospects for Black Americans or Black people globally. You shouldn't be collecting 90 million, which I think is light as a number, and then say, when time comes to file your paperwork, I'm not doing it.
Well, when they said Black Lives Matter, I think they were talking about themselves.
The three of them, yeah.
Yeah. Not you people. It's just us.
Yeah. But this is, this is at the core of the Clinton Foundation issue. I know I just did the by accident, but
No, that's okay.
the Clinton Foundation issue is that if you pretend to be a charity, and a charity that excites the attention and support of corporate sponsors, of the public at large, of people who just want to wrap money to be virtue signaling, that's a very serious crime. And you can't just be making an example about these three black women. You should be making examples of the Clinton family.
I agree.
Because they've done a lot more in terms of scale. Maybe we should contact this guy.
Well, that's why I just brought him up, because I put out a tweet this morning before, and given the speed at which that tweet was hit, I think there's people sitting on my Twitter account waiting for anything, but I think it's racist that they're going after Black Lives Matter and not the Clintons.
What was it? Let's see. People like Asian. I don't know what this guy's background is.
Well, he might be Filipino, I'm thinking, based on his name.
Yeah, he says he's Filipino. But, if he's really going to make an issue of this, we would, as Jen Psaki would say, we'll circle back and point him in the direction of some of the work we've done in the past. The laws on the books in California and the traditions about charity are quite strict, because the tax rates are extremely high between state, and in San Francisco and I think Los Angeles, there are additional taxes, just as is the case in New York State and City. And New York has obviously been around as a state much longer than California, but there are much more strict rules about filings in California and in New York than there are about filings in places like Arkansas or Texas or elsewhere. And so, first of all, shame on these three people, and shame honestly on Barack Obama. I mean, he's got this big charity, maybe more than one, the Barack Obama Foundation, and then these other 501c4 operations he's affiliated with. He should be, if he wanted to be taken seriously by people who are not necessarily in his political following, he would stand up and say, I believe I am devoting the balance of my life to promoting a 501c3, 170b1a6 charity. I am a lawyer. I was president of the Harvard Law Review. I understand the significance of this. I want to preserve my records of my historic presidency, and I want people to study them over time. And when people, particularly black people, get together and pretend to have a charity that then gets a lot of money, that is money that is being taken away from other people who really do want to chase their own dreams and have hope and change and all. These are people who are stealing. They're stealing hope and Benjamins.
Yeah,
it's not changed. They're taking the Benjamins.
Dollars. Well, you know what they say: you take care of the nickels and dimes and
the pennies, I think,
or whatever. The dollars do something after that. It's a bold theft. Right. I really.
And then when you go to Nike, I've been talking about Nike for a while.
Nike?
Yeah.
Oh, with Avenatti?
Not with Avenatti, but I have spoken about that with Avenatti, but more focused on the business model of Nike. I mean, if it cannot make sense today, labor must be a very small percentage of the retail cost of a sneaker.
I think it costs pennies to make them. I mean, it's plastic
and transportation. When you think about the logistics of making different SKUs, stock keeping units, different size sneakers, different colors or whatever, all over the world, and shipping them mostly by, I guess, sea to different ports in the United States, which are of course all backed up because boot edge doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
No, he's breastfeeding. He knows what he's doing.
He's busy. But anyway, and then to get those sneakers back into a retail shop and back home to a consumer, you look at that, and if you really truly cared about climate change, you would say that supply chain is all those warehouses and the ships and the fuel and the electricity why are we doing it this way? Why don't we, now that labor's so cheap, bring all that stuff back here? And certainly let's not go, why don't we go to a place where we can use slave labor to make our sneakers, in China? And for Nike to be out there, I guess they're somewhere in Oregon or something,
Yeah.
Full woke, encouraging people to overpay for these sneakers. I don't know what they cost today. I wouldn't buy sneakers other than to play an actual sport. But I would guess top of the line Nikes are certainly many hundreds of dollars.
Certainly $150 is not shocking at all for sneakers. I mean, historically, the thing that's weird is, I remember the concept of the $100 sneakers being super outrageous to people. When I was in high school, Michael Jordan and the Air Jordans were really, in my recollection, the first kind of like super celebrity endorsement of a sneaker that created a phenomenon like that. And then it created a fashion phenomenon, and people were like beating each other up to get them because you couldn't get them. And then those were like $150. But even still today.
Wonder what they are today. I think they're much more than $150.
Well, let's look, because it depends. You can get sneakers for $80. You can get sneakers for $10.
Top of the line Nike, whatever those might be.
Where's the shopping thing? Here we go. Let's just say top of the line.
There's the sneaker that everyone has to have.
What is going on with the sound? It's like getting quieter by itself. We've just gone way down. We're getting... Can people hear us? Is this me? I don't know, maybe my ears are going, but most expensive, Oh yeah, well you can get the Back to the Future ones for $23,000. Something weird going on with the headphones.
But $650 Jimmy Choo,
There we go.
Let's just say 300 is probably a reasonable number.
No, these are bad. These are, I think, limited edition special deal. Wow. These are like collectible or something. 16,000. Let's just go to Nike.com and let's see what they've got there. New releases, new for men shoes.
Okay, yeah, 130, 160.
160.
Now, is this to buy direct from them or in a store?
I think what they do is, this is direct, but I think that you're like not allowed. It's very difficult to get Adidas for any less than what they're advertised on Adidas, and I guess that must be some deal they make with whoever is selling them.
Right. Well, these prices aren't as high as I might have thought.
65 for these.
Yeah.
But the thing that's weird is, it's just inflation doesn't matter. The fancy Nikes were $150 when I was in high school, 30 whatever years ago, and they're still $150 or $200.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Because they probably cost 4 cents to make, and they're just like, whatever, $150.
You don't have to pay slaves.
Yeah.
In China. But, Nike got all into supporting, in a corporate sense, an organization that didn't exist. This is something that we talked about in real time back in 2020, that corporations, when they make donations to foundations, have to be very careful that the foundation actually exists. And you look at, if you punch in Black Lives Matter's corporate sponsors, I think the list of corporate sponsors is, first of all, it's reprehensible that they didn't do their homework. They were just trying to be able to be in the pack of people. It's 23 companies. Here we go.
Yeah, I think Adidas was on there, which made me not so happy. Amazon is there.
Bumble, that's appropriate.
Bumble, that's a dating thing.
But IBM,
DoorDash,
Microsoft,
Grindr, Grubhub.
I didn't see Grindr.
Matchstick Ventures, I don't know about that. I thought I saw Adidas on Amazon on here.
Slack, that's appropriate. What is Slack?
Oh, do you want to? I have something interesting to share with you about Black Lives Matter.
Is that how you spell her name?
Isn't it?
Well, okay.
Here. So a federal judge in New York, has decided that a convicted murderer who spent 23 years in prison can sue Amazon and Whole Foods for turning him down for a delivery job, despite the fact that he lied about his criminal record on the job application. And frankly, as somebody who has run many businesses, irrespective of the guy's past, lying on the application is grounds for not being hired. How can this guy possibly sue? Look at the judge. Oh, I think I know her. I think I've spoken to her.
He has a right to sue, though.
He's going to lose.
I'm saying he has a right to sue.
I think that's what she's doing. She's like, sure, sue. Bring more lawyers in here. Let me help boost the industry.
Lawyers enrichment program.
Yeah, exactly right.
But back on a serious note with this Black Lives Matter, I mean, we have too many examples in this country. I think of Al Sharpton, I think of Jesse Jackson, and now these Black Lives Matter criminals. They're making a mockery of what is a reasonable cause. I mean, I've talked in the past, the guy had to be one of the dumbest criminals out there, or thugs out there. This is maybe 30 years ago or so. I'm asleep, and I'm a light sleeper, and I hear noise, and I come to my apartment window, and I look outside, and I see this guy scurrying around, and he did not see that the police had turned around. They were facing the wrong way, and they had their high beams on, trying to find him. You okay?
A friend of mine's father just died.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. The high beams on, and they were looking for this kid who was in the street. And the kid thought, well, the smart thing for me to do is to go under a car, and they won't find me under a car. But he made the mistake of having his head out, trying to look down if anybody's seeing him or whatever. And the police surrounded the car, and then they beat the crap out of the kid, which they should not have done.
Well, you told me they stepped on his head or something.
They stepped on his head, yeah. And so, I mean, I think a lot of that does happen, and that's wrong. You should not do that. I don't care how frustrated you are. I don't care how heinous the criminal is. You shouldn't really be doing that. They call me a softie, but that's just...
Yeah, you can't.
And so there are legitimate grievances that an organization, if it existed, like Black Lives Matter, could try to bring to light and change. But when you do this kind of shit, what you're doing is you're opening up the people who are bigoted are going to look at this and say, to every black charity, why should we support it? Look what happens when you do. And that's also wrong, muddy thinking. But
well, it is terrible. But you know what? Anytime anybody does anything to feed into a stereotype, if you want to be a thought leader in your community, you got to fight stereotypes. Negative stereotypes.
Or set up a fake charity and run for president.
Steal a bunch of money. Yeah, a bunch of money,
it's
right.
easier, I think, to do that.
My God.
But look at this. This is less than 2 years later. It's being covered. And also trending now, Zucker. I mean, Zucker...
Oh, yeah.
How many? Is that 125,000 views or shares?
Where did you see that?
137,000. You see it upper right of the.
Oh,
pic?
yeah.
Is that shares or just views?
I just don't know. Well, it's the New York Post, so I guess a lot of people see it. Everybody knows that this, egghead dope. I mean, he's not really hiding it. He's out in public with the woman.
Yeah.
Drinking cocktails.
Yeah, and people are now they're now gonna have to go back into this and start questioning a lot of his very bad decisions, including his close friendship with Weinstein and Clinton and others.
Well, we're learning a lot about CNN. It seems that if you are a weirdo, a pedophile, a sexist jackass, it's a wonderful place to work.
Yeah.
Just nice teeth.
Yeah. Well, her family, I mean, her situation is now shot, as Trump would say, shot.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But Charles, isn't there some intrigue with the whole how this came about? That she was some sort of involved with either Chris or Andrew Cuomo. I mean, this really kind of reeks of the Cuomo brothers cooking up something to seek revenge.
Well, I think the way it might have worked, and I believe the Zero Hedge story covers it, doesn't it? Or is that?
There we go.
Yeah. I think Cuomo was fired, and Chris Cuomo, and he has a contract. And so he most likely was trying to say, like, you can't fire me for doing this if Jeff Zucker's been doing this. And that then triggered...
This is the thing here. Zucker's inappropriate workplace relationship may have come to light. May, after Chris Cuomo's legal team raised issues about it. I would hope that Zero Hedge is confirming that they raised issues about it and that that's true. Whether or not that's what brought it to light is the part that may or may not. But, here. 2 sources with knowledge of the situation not authorized to speak publicly said that Cuomo's legal team, which continues to negotiate his exit from the network, raised issues about the relationship. It does.
It makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is that she, Gollust, would still be able to stay there. That doesn't make sense to me at all.
It depends on what her role in this whole dust-up was. I mean, right now we're presented with the possibility that she was in sort of romantic relationship with Zucker. What if she's put there to... be a bomb in the middle of CNN?
And my understanding is that Zucker in his youth was really a wonderkind. I mean, he was the producer, I think, for Katie Couric and at the Today Show, and that he took that in his 20s into a mega operation.
Ooh, so they're saying this relationship is why CNN protected Cuomo.
Yeah.
The intrigue grows, Charles. But I mean, I think we see how these things
And here's the statement,
work.
the Trump statement.
Oh, there we go.
This is the former president of the United States. Jeff Zucker, a world-class sleazebag. I mean, you can be sure it wasn't. Melania had no input into this statement. It was like, I'm just going to write this myself. I don't need a communications team.
He also doesn't need a social media channel. It's just better when he sends out these letters. Why doesn't he just make the Donald Trump website and post these letters and just leave it at that?
Right. Go on Substack.
Right. The lame stream media is gone. Congratulations to all. What do we think of these pinstripes, Charles? Too pronounced.
The second wife picked him out. I don't know. My experience, I'll just digress a little bit here. We talked about the Jake Tapper thing, but before I got to Jake Tapper early in June 2016, we're going to be talking about June 27th, 2016. I spent a fair amount of time on the phone with the head of and senior members of the real investigative journalist team, which was based in Atlanta, of CNN, and I sent them a lot of information that they should have jumped all over because they had done quite an expose of a cancer charity, and they'd written about it in CNN. They picked it up and they did something jointly with Fortune. They knew the ground. This was a small $200 million, compared to the Clinton Foundation, fake charity. And they also had done work on Ranbaxy and distributing AIDS drugs and stuff like that. So I really felt that CNN, if they are going to demonstrate that they were not in the news business, or they were going to look at this and say, you know what, we got to hit this hard. And the reaction, you see the way I talk. I seldom yell and scream, and unless I'm really
I don't
mad.
think I've ever heard you do that.
Right, and on this in a television setting or on a phone call, I wouldn't do that. But I was, taking people at supposed investigative journalists to the idea that here's Bill Clinton and Chelsea Diarrhea Clinton and Hillary Clinton taking credit, victory laps for distributing these medicines into corrupt countries where nobody has custody and control of them, where the medical systems aren't good, where the water isn't good. And it's arguable that the whole Fauci-led, Birx-led HIV/AIDS approach has not only killed a lot of people, but created resistance through the distribution of these bad drugs that will ultimately...
Resistance, you mean medical resistance to the treatment, or psychological resistance to getting involved?
Resistance that has affected the bodies of the patient population, and that some new strain now is going to come along and wipe these people out, and they haven't had the appropriate investments internationally. And it seems to me that rather than this is not Albert Schweitzer, devoting himself, and I hope Albert Schweitzer was a good medical missionary, but it's not people who are good-hearted, sacrificing their lives to help others. This is generic pharma, big pharma, getting close to corrupt politicians with dynastic political ambitions and a thirst for power and money, pretending that they've actually done good when in fact they haven't done good, the Clintons, that is. And so I was making my case, and one of these top investigators said, Charles, why are you so passionate about this? Why do you think that we should care about this?
Wow.
And I'm like, because people, specifically black people, are being killed by other people, predominantly white people, who are going about and saying they should be president of the United States because their family's doing good. I think that's a pretty big story. I was like, well, never mind. We'll get back to you. But actually, they referred me to Jake Tapper, and then I had the meeting with him in Washington, D.C., and they actually had a whole bunch they asked me for questions. They claimed they sent the questions to the Clinton Foundation, and the producer, when I sat down, we talked about this before, she said before I met Jake, she said, you have to understand that we've already talked to the Clinton Foundation, and they say that they have answered all of your questions to your satisfaction.
What?
And I said, bullshit, because I don't do that. I'm not a journalist, and I knew that's not an approach that's ever going to work with the Clinton Foundation.
But it is a lawyer's approach. They say that.
Well, a lawyer shouldn't do that. A lawyer.
Oh, they shouldn't, but they do. They say that, and irrespective of the truth, they figure, we'll say this, and if it's accepted, we just move past that and go to the next thing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe they do that for sure, but I don't know, maybe I'm stupid for looking at the bar rules of professional misconduct or conduct, but you're not supposed to take a central role or even a supporting role in an artifice or scheme to defraud, which is exactly what the Clinton Foundation is and always has been.
I know a lot of lawyers who do that.
Yeah, and so anyway, perhaps enough on CNN, but I would guess it's going to be bad for New York, actually, what's going on here, because I think I believe CNN is in the process of being sold, or maybe it's already been sold, and if I were this guy Malone, I think, who's Robert Malone or somebody Malone.
The doctor?
No. Multi-billionaire who's, I think, purchased CNN. I may have that wrong, but I believe there's a transition of ownership. I would look at this mess and I'd say, you know what? We have gigantic studios and operations in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
And it's much cheaper to live in Atlanta than it is. It is much cheaper than Park Avenue. And
for news, if you're not in New York, you've got to be in New York.
You don't have to have I don't know if you've been in the CNN place. It's gigantic.
You don't
need that kind of investment. One floor would do, not many floors with all these high.
You know what, Charles? When you look at the amount of content that they're taking from live streaming street journalists like me and others that we've seen, you don't need the type of remote operation that you once needed to do these type of networks. You could purchase that footage daily from trusted providers. And
I'm more referring like when you go in to when I used to go in 8 years ago now into the floor where Zucker was there and Anderson Cooper and all those people were there. The number of offices and people milling around, many of them highly paid, and then you go through the number of people that, such an operation,
huge money,
is huge money for their salary, for their overhead, and then for the office space and all the other stuff. I just look at it from business decision and I say, like, New York, we don't need to have
half the staff.
It is not even a toilet; it's an outhouse, literally. The poop of Greenwich. There's poop everywhere, crime everywhere. This is not a city that's going to rise from the ashes anytime soon. I just make the decision. I say, look, if you're desperate to stay in New York, try to find a job at CBS or NBC. We're out of here. We're reducing our footprint in New York by 80%.
Yeah, something like that.
As a result of this.
I think you could probably get a large percentage of what they're getting right now, even with 80% less staff.
But also, if you're given a choice, if you, as I was once on, it's prohibitively expensive now. If you're on the track, 2 kids, multiple homes, private school, nannies in New York City, you got to
be a huge millionaire to do that.
But the point is, that's Jeff Zucker. That's his life. And you look at somebody like that and you say, instead of spending all this money out of your $10 million per year on this,
just have sex with the nanny. That's perfect.
Keep it. Come on, let's not go. you can spend less and save more, is my point. We'll
Right.
pay you a bit less, but you're going to make a lot more after tax, and more importantly, you're going to keep a lot more in your pocket if you can keep your pants up. You know,
No one. That's why they're not firing Tubin for jerking off and whatever. That's like nothing
it's like
for CNN.
he's on the management track.
Right.
He could do that. How did he do that?
Yeah.
How did he participate in this? I mean, production meeting while doing that.
No, the reason that they fired him is because there was nobody else in the room when he did it. It's like, you don't know what you're doing. Get out of here. You got to do that at a party or with your secretary or your
That's right. Or
subordinates or
in front of the building with the
Force
front of the
them to
police,
watch.
in front of the police.
Yeah. You didn't learn anything in basic training. Get out of here.
Go into Central Park and find that Richard Quest.
With the meth. Right. It's a wreck over there at CNN. The most trusted name in news, unless you're married to one of them.
I think you changed this. Most trusted name in nudes, N-U-D-E-S.
The most trusted name on this floor of this side of the office building, as long as you don't talk to that guy or this woman over here, we're good.
Now, I can safely predict that Tucker Carlson and Jesse Waters will be all over this, and Hannity, for sure. It'll be fun to watch Fox tonight.
Yep.
May I say, actually, I turned off Fox for about a year, and I end up jumping around and landing on Fox, and I noticed that Jesse Waters was going to have a new show, and so I actually started watching his show.
You like Jesse Waters?
I think his show, again, what I like, this is what my father said about technology. If you can do something different with technology, then that's really a major league improvement. Now, the guy is all full of himself, as most of these TV stars are, but he's very good. He's had a lot of experience now on camera and doing this kind of stuff. He started as a gopher and worked his way up.
But what has he done with technology?
Well, it's just that he's using, instead of doing the dry, we're going to do fair and balanced, we're going to have Jason debate Charles, and we're only going to have AP news feed and stuff like that. He's bringing in movie clips, and he's doing all sorts of funny stuff, and it's levity, but it's respectful levity. It's very pointed. His monologue is good, and it's just a slightly different presentation than others have, and it's definitely a different flavor and a complementary flavor, and it's so much better than watching these bantamweight idiots on CNN or MSNBC. I don't know the last time you watched a panel on MSNBC, but it's just...
That'd be never.
Well, I have to flip through channels to get to different places, and so you land on the channel and you briefly listen to this stuff, and you say, this person is certifiably insane. What is this person doing on television? But you see that person, Eli Mistal, M-Y-S-T-L.
No idea
crazy.
who that is.
Yeah.
Charles Held tells us that meth is very dangerous. I agree with that. Again, if somebody was working for 21st Century 3D and found passed out in the park with meth, I'd be like,
see ya.
Yeah, you're not coming back.
Right. Yeah.
I told you one time there was a guy working for 21st Century 3D. I had a Halloween party, and he threw up all over the place and left a needle in my bathroom, and somebody told me he was injecting heroin. That guy got fired.
Why?
Because you can't bring heroin to the party.
That's not good. Not good. What was Hunter doing at your party?
Nah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, if you met this kid day to day, I was shocked.
Yeah. Not good. Why don't we go and talk about Sing for a little bit? Sign, rather.
Oh, yeah.
Sing and sign.
Yes. This is a good topic. People haven't thought about this in a little while. And listen, nobody is guilty, but if something goes out of the news, there's so much going on, it's easy to forget. This is Christopher Sign, the journalist who wrote the book about the Bill Clinton, Loretta Lynch meeting on the tarmac at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport.
Yeah, and he was found dead in June of 2021. So the book supposedly came out in paperback January 1st, 2020. Look, it's got a lot of ratings, 332 ratings. Should we do the rating test and see?
Yes. I was actually looking at the reviews. Well, I'll tell you about this later when we get to Neil Young. But here's 5-star. Had a front row seat to the biggest get of Chris Sign's career. And as a colleague and fellow journalist. It was incredible to watch him work this story. He's dedicated and committed. When was this written? Before his death. Wow. So Spin Man Dan, I'd be interested in speaking to him.
Yeah, so I found the book, I mean, I think the story is compelling. I don't think the book is terribly well written or edited. But what comes across from the book is that this gentleman was definitely a family man, in the sense that he doted on his 3 kids and his wife. When you read the book, there's a lot of repetition, and so it takes longer than it should to get through the book. But the key points for me were that he had grown up poor, though his father had been in the NFL. That he somehow had no money and a bunch of kids. And he talks about how he grew up eating fried bologna 3 times a day, and but loving his life, which is, I think, that's life around the planet. Frankly, most people around the planet are materially not well off, but they enjoy the family unit, and they dote on their kids.
I think kids like fried bologna.
Well, but I'm just saying, he was clearly not somebody who was to the manor born, who cared about material wealth, and he talks in there. It was a little bit odd. His schedule was to get to work at 12:30 in Phoenix, when he worked there at the time of the book, to get there shortly after midnight local time, which, depending on the time of year, can either be, I think, 2 or 3 hours, or maybe it's always just 2 hours difference.
Oh no, you're right. It switches. Sometimes it's 3 hours and sometimes it's 2.
Right, and I know from the times that I've been on, I was on I guest hosted CNBC once at I think 5 in the morning for an hour.
Wow.
And to do that, I had to get there Eastern time. I had to get there 3 or 3:30. And you just have to be organized, and you
gotta go to sleep at like 7 p.m.
Yeah, it was even worse for me, because I was coming in from I had been on a trip to Ukraine, actually, no, to India.
Wow.
And I'd stopped on the way back in Hungary for something, and I was hungry. And,
tell them, get ready to get sacked.
And so I just, I had very little sleep. I was jet lagged, and I had to turn around and get back out there and do that. But so he talks about how he would get to work and really finish work at, say, 10 a.m., sometimes noon, and get back, and his wife would be there with little kids at that point, 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old boy, or something like that. And he'd crack open a beer, it said, at 11:30, 12. But he talks in the book, 2 is my limit, and whatever. And I don't think he had a drinking problem. He was, it's possible.
That's interesting that you mentioned that he says that 2 is the limit, because I think drunk 2 is like 17 beers.
No, but this is a guy, if you look into him, I mean, and I'm not any expert on football, but I do know that the University of Alabama has a serious football team. He was not first string, but he played on it. And he met his wife, who was on the volleyball team there, and they were clearly athletes. They, had the 3 kids together. They would meet, at least while he was out there in Phoenix, they would meet at lunch, the end of his workday, to go to the gym and work out together. He had a pool at his house, modest house. But so when you read that book, and again, I haven't seen crime scene evidence. I haven't seen crime reports. There may have been. He may have just found out he had a horrible health problem, or whatever. But
I don't know.
When I read that book, and I'll get to some of the nuggets of the book in a second, and see this, I call bullshit. I think this is similar to the Peter Smith thing.
Well, again, they say he committed suicide. Yeah, I don't really know the details around this guy's death.
And so what he was getting into in the book was the fact that he had 2 sources, one initial source and then a confirmatory source, who after the meeting, the day after the meeting, contacted him. The meeting was on June 27th, 2016. Remember, my attempt to get to meeting, I'm actually taping with Jake Tapper, was like June 1st or 2nd, roughly, 2016. So several weeks before this. And I laid out in my discussions with Tapper many more observations that I had and concerns that I had about the Clinton Foundation. And my suspicion is that that videotape went directly to the Clintons. And this is when the investigation by Strzok, under Comey's direction, is full swing into the email. and when in theory an investigation into the Clinton Foundation was open. We know from the Cheryl Atkinson book and other reports that the FBI did, and Horowitz, Inspector General report, we know the FBI opened multiple investigations into the Clinton Foundation in January of 2016. I know, because I did it, that I had forwarded tremendous amounts of information in the public domain and to journalists around the world, getting a lot of attention, Zero Hedge, a lot of attention in May of 2016. And here, Bill Clinton shows up June 27th in Phoenix, in Sky Harbor Airport, and the excuse that he gives, that they give to the world, is that he was in Phoenix to play golf. Now, I've never been, I may be forgetting something, but I don't believe I've ever been to Phoenix in late June. I did go there once in May, and it was freaking hot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they say it's a dry heat,
It
but
doesn't
still,
matter.
you know, it's really, really hot. And here's a guy who in 2016, he's 12 years following his first heart surgery, which was in September, or heart procedure, September of 2004, and Sign in his book calls bullshit on the idea that Clinton would have been in Phoenix to play golf, because Sign's own father died of a second heart attack, and he had lived through a long period with his father where the father, a former football player, had been careful about going out in the high heat and exerting yourself the way you would if you were going to play golf in June, the weekend of June 24, 25, 2016. Just as Comey is bringing the team together to give the absurd press conference that he gave in early, to interview Hillary Clinton with all of her co-conspirators in the room, getting to see what Hillary would say, not under oath. This meeting here happened shortly before Hillary's discussion, and then Comey's decision to say, well, what she did was wrong, but no credible prosecutor would prosecute. To me, this is the kind of meeting that a hothead like Bill Clinton would have said, Loretta, I put you in the political world. You were on my team. And the fact, it is the case that Loretta Lynch's role in the 92 campaign was to be on the hit squad with others, including Hillary, who were in charge of listing out all the scandals that might torpedo the 92 campaign and making sure those scandals never came to light. So she's sort of been on the Clinton mop-up team, Loretta Lynch is, ever since 1992. He puts her on the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District, and eventually she becomes Attorney General.
I don't trust this at all, Charles. I'm sorry.
I know you don't.
Harvard is out the window for me. You're the only person from Harvard that I like.
Okay, well, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Dershowitz, dope. Snyder, dope.
I didn't know. I forgot she served on the Federal Reserve Bank of New York board. But anyway.
That's not good.
Yeah. So anyway, she's in this role in 16, and you can imagine Bill hearing, because he has so many. The Clintons have so many. I don't want to say spies, but people beholden to them who serve in government or academia
Why not
or media.
spies?
Because they're not really spies. They're just on the Clinton team or whatever, the Mayhem team. And I forgot that she worked at Cahill Gordon. That was one of Dillon Reed's primary law firms. But so I can imagine Clinton learning that Comey or Strzok or somebody was going to go more aggressively than Clinton had heard, and he said, "You know what? I got to speak face to face with this Attorney General and let her know."
Isn't that the mob boss move?
Yeah, and to me, if you're, again, I'm not a political type and I'm not a lawyer, but if your wife is once again under investigation,
isn't it still?
Once again, here we go again. She's back under investigation. You should know, because you had been President of the United States for 8 years. You should know that it's just not done to go and seek a private meeting with a person who is in charge of making the call as to whether or not Hillary Clinton should be prosecuted.
Oh, I just did something that I did not want to do. Anyway, this will fix it.
You,
Okay. No, because I wanted to point something out to you about this video, if you're ready for that.
I am.
Okay. So first of all, what do you notice about this, Charles? You've been to general aviation, private jet type things. Are there usually 2 police cars there?
In this case, there were, because there's the team for Bill and the team for Loretta.
That's what I'm saying. People knew about this, because
Right.
I've only flown on a private jet twice, and it was with a fancy company, but they didn't have police cars there. We just went to this little terminal and walked out to the thing and got on the plane. So the cops knew this was happening. People knew this was going on. Now, what do you notice here? Video looks terrible, doesn't it?
The video does look terrible.
So you're telling me ABC News doesn't know how to de-interlace a video before they zoom in on it like that? Someone's giving us bad evidence to look at here.
Yeah, I don't think that if this really was during daylight hours, that Bill Clinton would be standing on the tarmac. The essence, some of the contradictions in the book are that Sign had identified. Who knew about? Was this really a meeting by chance or not? You know, what was Bill doing out there in Phoenix? To this day, nobody will say. Nobody will confirm that he actually played golf. Nobody at the supposed fundraiser will explain what was going on in the fundraiser.
Phoenix is not a big city. Bill Clinton cannot roll around there without getting seen. And this is crap. What is this, 1992 that this thing was shot? Right. This would be, I mean, I guess maybe it's a security camera, but even security cameras are high definition. They would not be interlaced.
Right.
Something weird going on here.
So the other issue, of course, is that Clinton was supposedly, one thing is that Loretta Lynch did not approve him coming on board the plane, is one account.
Whoa.
And then there's another account saying that he was invited on the plane. Then you just think logistics. If you're, however old Bill was back then, in the heat of the summer, are you going to stand out on the tarmac, or are you going to have one of your cars there with your AC on, and wait for however the protocol works to be invited back on the plane? I think you're going to sit inside the cars, I guess. And on the one hand, some people say that the meeting took 20 minutes. Other people say 10 minutes. And the Sign was going through the list of the topics. How could you cover all the many topics that multiple investigations of all this? And he was trying to put all this stuff together in the book. And he didn't, at least whoever wrote it, if he wrote it, or whoever, the team that wrote it, didn't really get as far into the meat of the matter as they should. What would Bill Clinton have been able, what would he want out of Loretta Lynch, and what might he have been willing to threaten her with? And this is the kind of conversation where the Clintons in the Halper book.
Well, I mean, what he can threaten her with is a wide open field, Charles, because if you've been down with the Clintons for more than a week, I'm sure they've had you do things that they could say, well, I don't think you want people to find out what happened with this.
But before we get to Laura Silsby, which I don't know how related that is.
Somebody mentioned it in the chat.
Oh, okay. But before we get there, I think what happened with regard to the Clinton Foundation investigation in 2016 is teams of FBI agents demanded that there be an FBI investigation. And we know from reporting that the corrupt elements, I would argue, in the Justice Department said, boys and ladies, investigate this shit all you want. When time comes to prosecute, Jack, nobody is going to be prosecuted, whatever you come up with. And so there was tension. And this is, we had talked about part one as I think all we'd seen when this came out, but evidently now there are 2 parts to this, and maybe people in the crowd can look through it. What struck me when I saw part 1 only was the tone of the FBI agents was not, this is outrageous. I mean, how could Bill Clinton show up here unannounced? How could he give the appearance of impropriety to an important investigation here into the email? And it was none of that. It was like, who leaked this? We got to stop this. We got to find the leaker.
Right. And that's what I mean with the cops there. I mean, the FBI probably knows what the cops are doing, right?
Right. So that's interesting to me. And why don't we, for the hell of it,
Ooh, a lot of redacted stuff.
if we could put in, if we could look at the Hillary R. Clinton FBI vault file and see how many parts that has.
It's the ever expanding.
Yeah, I don't know if it used to be like 41 or 42.
I think it was up to 44 the last time we looked, but I could be wrong. Hillary R. Clinton.
43, yeah.
All right.
So if you look at part 2 there. Okay. Now, I remember when Judge Napolitano was still at Fox, and just right here in this first paragraph, I remember him after this thing was released. I remember him saying, it's outrageous that no one has been able to see a copy of Hillary Clinton's testimony in connection to this email operation. And I contacted him and said, dude, part 2. Here it is, right here. There's a summary of it. Okay, and it says, look at this. Present for the interview with Hillary Clinton: David Kendall, another lawyer, Catherine Turner, Cheryl Mills, I would argue, who's a co-conspirator, a lawyer, Heather Samuelson, I think a lawyer, and redacted, we don't know who that was. Peter Strzok is in this meeting. Okay.
He's blocked me on Twitter,
Yeah.
and appeared in a podcast with Ben Wittes.
Did he really?
Yeah.
But so,
like 4 people watching it.
Right. So this is July 2nd, 2016. So as I understand the way these FBI investigations, in quotes, work, they go after the junior fish first, and they try to build a case, get them to flip up the line, and they wait till the very end to interview the big fish, which is an appropriate, I think, caption for this one. And that interview happened on July 2nd, 2016, actually less than a week before June 27th, 2016. So you're telling me that Bill Clinton didn't know that there was an interview forthcoming with Hillary Rodham Clinton?
He knew.
He knew. And you're telling me that there wasn't potentially a controversy that maybe hard asses in the FBI were saying, no, Hillary has to be alone. Hillary can't have her lawyers. It has to be tape recorded or whatever. And the Clinton people were saying, you don't understand. I'm going to be president of the United States. What's your name again?
Right.
I already know where you live.
Right.
So,
but that's not hard asses. That would be the limited number of legitimate actual law enforcement officers at the FBI, and the people who do that and then get overridden and look around and say, what the hell is going on here? I'm quitting to go work for Hilton.
Right. Exactly. And so you look at this and you compare this. This is white privilege lives matter. That's what Hillary Clinton's, in quotes, charities are. And you compare this with either Corinne Brown or Black Lives Matter. I mean, here's somebody who's actually running for president, who has managed to cover up the use by the Clinton family of multiple fake charities to solicit donations that donors and foreign governments provide to get close to that, dynastic political family. And here she is poised. She could taste it. She's poised to be president of the United States. And she's getting ready to make sure that you ain't seen nothing when it comes to bleach bidding, right? At this point, she knows she's going to be president of the United States.
It's a dangerous moment for somebody like that because their overconfidence can cause them to make mistakes.
Exactly. And so when I look at this and I see, here in sign another poor guy, and I mean, his family, from what I could tell, and just in that book, it was a close family, and it no early death like this with 3 young boys to raise is going to be easy for anybody. And here's yet another one. I mean, I think you get one of these maybe in your life as a politician, but to have a Clinton body count now that is as big and long as it is in so many different places.
But what do you mean one? Like one mysterious death, like maybe that's just a coincidence, but they have like 80?
Peter Smith, I mean, you just go on and on and on. And so, to me, this cries out for deep focus. It cries out as well for people to finally get into this Clinton Foundation and just do the elementary work that we're going to go over a bit of in a second. And you know, I really grieve for the Sign family. I think it's horrible what's happening here.
I think we should focus on this. We need to do a strange death of Christopher Sign video and figure out more of the details. Because when I look at the news now, it just says the police said that he committed suicide and there's an investigation, but I don't see any more recent information than that. So it's the same exact thing as Peter Smith.
Yeah, and others.
And others.
Yeah, the UN guy who was going to testify right before the November election, who death by barbell.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
What about Morsi, death inside a glass box in court? How did they do that?
Yeah. They're skilled.
EM weapon?
I don't know. Who knows?
Not even allowed to have electronic stuff in court, although it's Egypt, so I'm not sure how the rules work. You're only allowed to have electronic directed energy weapons, Charles.
That's right.
If you're a lawyer.
So have we covered off the main things yet? Or, yeah, sort of covered that one. We'll get back to that. We'll just make sure we've covered that.
This is what I was talking about before, is that the New York Times only 2 months ago was talking about New York's gun control law is unlikely to survive. Kavanaugh weighed in on this, and suddenly Joe Biden is coming here to make this an issue. It's almost like they're counteracting. Almost.
Yeah, almost.
It's very much like that, actually.
Covered that one, I think.
Oh yeah, radar. Did you want to talk about this?
I think we more or less covered it.
Them.
I mean, it's a sad chapter.
This guy we got.
We hadn't talked about this one. I mean, lo how the puny have fallen. I mean, this guy, if you remember, in the
he was going to run for president.
He was going to run for president. He was saying that other Democratic candidates weren't tough enough, that he needed to jump into the ring. I mean,
look! Even the illustration reflects the new SDNY policy. You have to now wear N95 to go in there.
Yeah. But this guy's a scoundrel, and I think the penalty. I mean, you're stealing money from your client, a stripper or a former stripper.
He's shaking down Nike.
I mean, and he's a member of the bar. I mean,
honestly, none of that surprises me, Charles. This is the way a lot of people there. Again, it's not just lawyers. I find an overwhelmingly large number of people in any field. I can't find people who know how to make a sandwich properly.
Yeah.
You can start getting into complicated stuff like this. Forget it.
Right, but there should be a standard, and there was in the case of Bill Clinton's surrendering his law licenses for lying under oath, that the penalties against lawyers for breaking the law should be tougher.
No, that's not the way it goes.
Yeah, they just never get charged. Well,
right.
People are fond of saying, the banking community can't regulate itself, and
but the legal community does.
Well, no, the bank community does as well. I mean, the SEC sort of is toothless, frankly, compared to...
But it's one of those things like the FBI. When they want to get you, they can, and it's Peter Strzok's wife in there. Also, I wanted to ask you, are we sure that this is not Mark Twain?
It does look a bit like him. I'm pretty sure it's not.
But Schweitzer.
Samuel Clemens, you mean?
Sorry, yes. The myths of his death the rumors are exaggerated.
Got that one done.
We got that. I mean, I don't know. We're pretty much ready for the Massachusetts thing, I think.
Yeah, let's go into Massachusetts for a second here. And let's pull up the EIN 311580204.
I'm waiting for the day when you say, you should remember that by now, Jason. It's soon, and I should remember it.
No, it's okay.
It's a lot of numbers to keep in your head.
Yeah. And let's look at the 2003 audit. You got it there, yeah. And let's look at the balance sheet, which is the fourth page in. Now, this balance sheet shows very clearly that there's no debt outstanding at year-end 2003. If you look in there are no liabilities outstanding, right? See, you have to go down the page a little bit. So they're only equity, only unrestricted net assets. There's no liabilities on this balance sheet. So that means that they had no borrowings at December 31st, 2003. And if we go to the date of this thing, this was written, the independent accountants is further down.
They got it on the 4th.
May 5th is the date they issued this thing, right?
March.
So, March 5th, rather.
But wait, it says up here.
That's when it was emailed, probably to Massachusetts by then, or faxed. Shannon Tanner is an executive at the Clinton Foundation then, and she probably faxes.
1/4/2004.
Right, she faxes this thing in 2004. But the point being here.
Wait, but how could you fax it prior to the date on the letter?
No.
This says 1/4/2004. AGO.
It's probably April 1st. 4/1.
Ah, so someone European has it?
I don't know. But the point is, when we look at this, remember I've been telling you about these balance sheets, it's tough to do for a complex entity. Remember, at this point, the Clinton Foundation has got Liar Magaziner acting in theory on its behalf in Massachusetts. It's got Liar Bill Clinton acting on its behalf in New York. It's doing all these projects in Mozambique and all over the world, and Mozambique, doing all these things. And when you try to, I don't know if you've ever tried to put together a financial statement for an operation that is engaged in multiple currencies at once.
Let me give you a couple guesses on that, Joe. I don't know if you've ever tried to do a 4K stereoscopic digital motion picture, but I'm going to guess nah.
Okay. So anyway, if you're just trying to figure out how much American money you have at any one point in time, to put it simply, that's
wampum.
Well, as opposed to, you probably have foreign currency from other trips lying around. Just to go through and say, as of December 31st, 2003, what was my net worth, recognizing that I'm letting Liar Magaziner go to South Africa and do a business plan for fighting AIDS in Tanzania and operating in St. Lucia and operating in India maybe, and Ukraine and all this. You're going to have revenues related to that. You're going to have expenses. They're going to be in different currencies. Donors are going to give you Norwegian kroner. The value of the Norwegian kroner is going to go up and down. It could go enormously up or down. So to get all that information together is very difficult, typically. This proved especially difficult for General Electric, which had all the money
bigger
in the
it
world.
is.
But they had all the money in the world to get this done properly. They didn't even have this idiot, Andrew Kessel, hadn't even shown up for work yet. He shows up on April Fool's Day, appropriately.
Oh, that's the date, April 1st on the thing.
Yeah.
If it's 1/4.
So, but he that's his first day on the job. And we need a fool. I'll show up on April Fool's Day. But anyway, so you look at this, and if this document is accurate, which it isn't, it shows there's no debt outstanding on December 31st, 2003.
Isn't that a little unusual, or is that normal?
What?
No debt at all?
Not for a charity.
Credit cards?
None of this I'm talking about hard debt, like borrowing from a bank. Charities shouldn't borrow from a bank unless they're doing it explicitly to further only their authorized purposes. It's not like an individual who gets do you want a credit line? You can go do whatever you want with it. Charities are only allowed to spend money for their actual purposes. So if we go down, scroll down here to the final page, I think, final footnoted page. It's called Subsequent Events. I think there it is, yeah. Subsequent Events, Note 8. So what that's about is that between the end of the year, December 31st, 2003, and March 5th, when the balance sheet was struck, or the letter was issued, if you go down a little bit on Note 8, you see that they claim they purchased a building for $1.98 million after December 31st, 2008, and that they're going to buy that building with a line of credit loan. Okay?
But it doesn't have any liability.
As of December 31st, 2003. That's the whole magic of these financial statements. They tell you what happened on a date specific, what's your net worth on that date, and then a good one will show you how your net income, your revenues, expenses produced net income during the year and helped you move from whatever your net worth was on December 31st, 2002 to what we're showing it on the balance sheet December 31st, 2003. And then a really good one will have what's called a cash flow statement that there's additional nuances. It's not just your net earnings change in a year. that determines what your new balance sheet's going to look like. So a cash flow statement will show you all those other things. You're supposed to do a cash flow statement for an entity this high in revenues, this large in revenues, but of course they're like, fuck that, we're not going to do that. If we did that, you'd be able to figure out we're stealing money.
Yeah.
And so another thing that is the case is that it's a very serious bank fraud to walk into a bank and say, we need money and we're going to use this money to construct this facility over here without revealing that you've already finished paying for that facility. And in fact, what you're likely to do is use that money either to fund Clinton lifestyle issues or to fund Democrat campaigns in 2004, which the Democratic National Committee had a pressing need to do.
How does the bank not catch that? Don't they want to know?
They're looking ahead and they're saying, John Kerry's going to be president. Bill Clinton's going to be influential in the Kerry administration. We're in trouble. We're Bank of America. We need some protection here.
Unbelievable.
So this financial statement, which is fiction, okay, it is not done according to United States accounting
Generally
standards.
accepted.
This, of course, is not on the Clinton Foundation website, but is available in New York, in Massachusetts. All right. So this says, in this one, it says no debt outstanding. Let's go back into the
AG.
Index. Now let's look at the 2004 audit, which is not available in, there you go.
But so, why are they putting it here if they're hiding it from the other place?
Because it's Andrew Kessel. He's a moron. He's not in control of his operation, and some clerk has sent this into Massachusetts. Maybe they've said, we have to give more disclosures in Massachusetts
because they got their thing revoked.
And exactly, and because there's issues of powerful politicians are telling them, Democrats, we can only protect you if you do this minimum here, and don't worry, nobody's going to see this until 2022, after the horse has long left the barn door. So here's the one for 2004. You see, this is issued. If you go, this is issued June 30th, 2005, and I think in a recent broadcast we explained that these knuckleheads, and they really are knuckleheads, Bill and Hillary, frankly, and certainly Liar Magaziner and Andrew Kessel, decide to pretend that they have amended their articles of incorporation on April 25th, 2005. So before issuing this, to change the name of it to the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, without changing the articles, to state that the thing is going to be run by a board of directors, because the articles state it's going to be run by a board of trustees.
What's the difference between that?
Well, it's just there shouldn't be that kind of a difference. The number one question that an accountant will work with you on in the beginning of an engagement, if it's a serious accounting firm, is they'll say, all right, Charles, you want me to audit your charity. Please give me your organizational and operational documents and proof that there is a charity. Financial statements are interesting, but until you can show me that you actually have an entity, I'm not going to, as Price Waterhouse, oh yeah, they did it anyway, or as Ernst & Young, oh, they did it anyway, or Cohen Resnick, oh, they did it anyway. I'm not going to issue financial statements under my name for an entity that doesn't exist, because the second I do that, the crooks who are running this charity can take this document into another bank and say, let's open up a bank account. Here's an audit for the thing. It obviously exists. And the banks are hungry for business.
They just see a signature on an audit and they say, somebody looked at it.
Third party looked at it,
But what's the difference between a board of directors and a board of trustees?
There is a difference under Arkansas law in that the standards of responsibility are higher for a board of trustees than for a board of directors.
Good news.
Yeah. So anyway,
for me.
All right. So let's go into the statement of position here, and this is down here. Does this, Jason, show any long-term debt at December 31st, 2003?
Well, it looks like $28 million bucks.
Look carefully. That's 2004 rather.
What?
Wrong column.
Oh, where am I looking?
2003.
Oh, this is zero.
Right. So here we have another example of BKD saying, in an audit, in theory, this entity has no debt at year-end 2003. Now we're getting into a zone, I don't want to lose the audience here, but we're getting in a zone of a financial magician explaining how the trick works.
And it's complicated.
It's not that complicated. So if I have no debt outstanding at the beginning of the year and 28 million at the end of the year, how much money did the bank give me during the year?
I'm going to guess 28 million.
Good.
Yeah.
And if
I can do math.
If I wanted to hide the fact that I had just gotten 28 million, would I, if I were a crook, change my mind and say, you know what, I had 28.4 million outstanding at December 31st, 2003, so I didn't get any 28.4 million. Okay? That's at the heart of what we're going to see in the next episode. Let's go back into the the index. Right?
Yeah.
And let's look at the 2005 audit, which we talked about last time, but without getting into this nuance.
Something different happened. There it is.
All right. This is, it's a different one. Okay, so you're going to have to go down to page 5. There you go. Now this shows, it doesn't show how much, it doesn't give you any information for 2003 in this one, right? Because you only have to do 2 years. This is the audit for 2005 and 2004. But it shows, as the other one shows, it shows that long-term debt outstanding was $28,479,870, right? Now, scroll down a few pages. We're going to get to the cash flow statement, the document I said was so helpful. Keep going.
It is strange the way these documents behave.
Keep going. All right, there's the cash flow statement. Then we look at financing activities for 2004. It says proceeds from issuance of debt, that's 2005 column, are only the 10,350, right?
Uh-huh.
There's nothing, the 28479 did not come in, they argue, during 2004 in this financial statement, which is a bold lie.
They love those. Bold
lie, allowing them to steal $28.5 million, or at least to divert $28.5 million. The other bold lie, of course, is the one told about the donation to NARA, which says that the $36 million given to NARA was a cash expense, when in fact it was a non-cash expense. So you add 36 million to 28 million, that's 64.4 million in total of money minimum that was diverted in 2004 as the Clinton Foundation, as Bill Clinton and Liar magazine were going around the world promoting their HIV/AIDS frauds, as Democrats were struggling for money to get into the White House. And that's a substantial amount of money that they didn't need. They diverted it, and the way they covered it up, and this is something that I don't want to cover in this video because it's best done in writing, and I'm working on the writing. The way they covered it up is by inflating the value of other assets and using certain tricks to make it seem as if the books and records were correct, when in fact they're not. So when you do this on this scale, you do it on a small scale, at minimum, the accounting firm should resign and say, we can't take this assignment. But when you're talking about issuing statements that hide a diversion of $64 million, right? You look, go back, if you would, a few pages to the statement of financial position. And look down here, net assets. The unrestricted net assets of this entity were, in theory, at year-end 2004, 105 million. And I'm telling you, 64 million of those were stolen. Okay?
It's a lot.
Right. I mean, that's not a small miss. Okay, that's a gigantic miss. And then that's at minimum 64 million, just of the tricks that we know. The one thing we will never know, unless we had a real investigative body, is how much revenue was sent in this period, 3, 4, and 5, towards these Clinton foundations. This just shows how much they want to declare they got, but ignores how much that may have been stolen. So another thing that's interesting, if we go, these 2 pages here, start with this one. This is very complicated here. You look at this, Even I looked at this and said at the beginning, what the hell is this all about? And you go down and...
But why is that? Is this not a standard form of...
It's not something I've used to see. And this line here, adjustments applicable to prior years due to change in basis of accounting. Now, that's not at all what happened here, okay? That is a concept that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And when we go here, instead of doing the page for 2004 in the same way so that you could understand these adjustments, they do it this way. Okay, and here they're saying $15.4 million has occurred because of accounting changes that relate to years beginning before January 1st, 2004. So in that period, the only thing, before January 1st, 2004, the only thing the Clinton Foundation was supposed to be doing was setting up a presidential archive and library in Little Rock and a research center. How did $15 million come into this entity from activities before 2004? And are we sure it's only $15 million? We've been through the Irish press release, which suggests the Irish government alone, one of many, was prepared to commit or had committed over $100 million to activities starting in July 2003. Are we certain that it was only 15.4 million? I'm certain it's not only 15.4 million. And where was the legal authority for this entity to do any of this in that time frame? And by the way, by June 9th, 2006, when this document is issued, the Clinton Foundation has destroyed itself. I mean, legally, they have basically gone ahead and falsely attempted to amend their articles of incorporation, but crippling the entity by making the changes they made. Then they've intended to amend their bylaws, but the amended bylaws don't apply to the William J. Clinton Foundation, which is the entity that in theory is the main entity. So with those two changes, they've destroyed themselves. In addition, they pass off a merger as having occurred as of December 31st, 2005, after these two self-immolation destructive changes occurred. So, you look at all this and we're only in 2005-06 time frame here. You would look at this and it would be tough to say who's the worst lawyer. Doug Band with the Band memo, Hillary Clinton. Kessel's not a lawyer, he's just a liar. Magaziner, same difference. He's just a liar.
We could have an award show, biggest dope in the
That's right.
Clinton Foundation. I actually have something positive to say about the Clinton Foundation, Charles, for all those people who say, it's always on the thing. And it's interesting that this Google Earth photo is actually about what I'm going to say.
What's that?
Well, and this is something you'd only know if you go to the Clinton Foundation, but this area that they're doing whatever they're doing to here, unless it's this part, it's coated with this sidewalk surface I've never encountered before or since that's like somehow rubberized and super soft, and it's the most comfortable sidewalk surface I've ever walked on.
Would you change your mind if you knew that was slime?
I mean, what I thought was, this is some extremely expensive and unique construction material that I've never seen before, and when you start doing anything other than you have red bricks or gray bricks, it's expensive in construction when you're using that kind of unique material. And I don't know if this is the part or if this has been replaced, but it immediately struck me as an incredibly premium thing that is also super unnecessary. Why is it there?
Cover up the blood.
Maybe somebody owns the company that makes that and no one's buying it. And when you have a huge grift operation like this and you want to funnel money to somebody, like, yeah, give us the $12,000 per foot sidewalk.
Could be.
Anyway, back to the thing.
Back to the thing. So yeah, that's if we go back as well to the
Massachusetts.
To that one page, back to the statement of position here. So you notice this says cash and cash equivalents restricted for transfer to the Bush Clinton Katrina Fund, 26,264,650, right? That's a lot of money. And we've done longer treatments of this, but just to refresh people's recollections, back in 2005 and afterwards in 2006, in New York, if you wanted to raise $26 million for something, you definitely needed to register, not just with the Attorney General, but with the Secretary of State. And in addition, you needed to have your professional fundraising solicitors register if that's what you were doing. And here they're saying categorically we had raised $26.3 million for this fund. But there's no William J. Clinton Foundation registered until July of 2009 with the Secretary of State. There's no evidence that the fundraisers for the Bush Clinton Katrina Fund were registered in New York State. There's ample evidence that fundraising began in New York State in August of 2005, before there was a legal entity called Bush Clinton Katrina Fund. And when you look at, so the $26 million is your asset. We go to the next page, Jason. That's, you bring in $26.2 million. It says here in total, if you look at the bottom here on this page, change in net assets, $55 million came in. 26.2, in theory, in that year, was for Bush Clinton Katrina. And this is where these numbers will make your head spin.
More, you mean?
Even more. That 26 million is part of the 16,690,025.
How?
Because there's a negative amount elsewhere that declined. This is the kind of stuff that a real accountant would footnote.
And a regular person would never see.
Right, you wouldn't know to look for.
I don't even know what I'm looking at.
But what you're trying to track is, what happened to this money that the Bush Clinton Katrina Foundation raised? Well, what was going on in 2006?
Oh, maybe
Hillary Clinton was running for re-election.
Yeah.
Other Democrats were running for re-election.
But why do they need to steal this money, Charles? Can't somebody like Hillary Clinton raise a ton of money for a campaign?
Evidently not. But it's more diabolical than that even, because when you have this fictitious charity around and you don't have to put a financial statement together for December 31st, 2005 until June 9th, 2006, there's a lot of time where you can make temporary use of this 25 million or more, right? You have time to work with your accountants and say, show me the statement for December. Oh, it's coming, don't worry, it's getting out of the archives. We have COVID problems, stupid problems, grift problems, whatever, my dog ate my homework. And the truth is, if you go back into the time frame of the Hurricane Katrina stuff, maybe if you Google, you'll see there's stories about people complaining that money had been raised to help the people in Katrina, but it hadn't reached the survivors of Katrina. So why were they sitting on a pile of $26 million?
Ooh, and then, why did people give up on looking into this? That's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't think, with these natural disasters, I don't think people have any idea how much money actually was raised. This is the likelihood of reclaiming the money was slim shady at best.
Oh, there was also a report that Brad Pitt's house building charity for New Orleans, all the houses are falling apart and they have construction problems that are causing them to rot and be abandoned and whatever. Right. And you know what? I got to say something. I've never met Brad Pitt, but people who I know who have worked with him say that he is actually exceptionally nice for somebody in that position. The problem is a lot of these people are not that financially savvy and not that smart necessarily. And so somebody comes to him and says, we're going to build houses for poor people. He's thinking, that sounds good.
I mean, we've done several shows on this, but if you go and find the Bush Clinton Katrina, I'm not asking you to do it now, but if one were to find the Bush Clinton Katrina 990 and look at the number of, go recipient by recipient through who supposedly got the money out of the Bush Clinton Katrina Foundation, you discover that many of the charities, and not just Pitt's But who's the other guy?
Matt Damon with the water charity?
That's a bad one. But no, the guy who married Sean Penn.
Oh, he capture El Chapo charity?
I don't know if it was that one, but it was.
He did help capture El Chapo, I think.
Yeah,
well, he interviewed him and then they arrested him.
Yeah. But there's something. William McDonough. That's interesting. I think I know him.
Who is he?
I could be wrong. Let's hit that. It's interesting that he would work with something called Graft Architects.
Grift Architects?
It says Graft.
Graft and Grift.
But let's just go down the summary. What does it say? Yeah, here. In December, Brad Pitt and William McDonough together with Graft Architects. How aptly named for a charity. Hey, let's hit that link and see what it. No, the footnote 5, and see what the story says.
It says
that is the X, I believe. If we hit.
Wow, they look nice, these houses.
But let's go down. I just want to see the mention of Brad Pitt.
Actor Brad Pitt to help 13 architecture firms. Lofts in New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah, Bill McDonough is the ex-husband of the architect of my big house in...
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, James Timberlake, is that Justin Timberlake's somebody?
I don't know.
I think he's from Louisiana, isn't he?
I don't know.
I think he might be. Well, anyway, I mean, again, I don't know. I don't get the impression that Brad Pitt is out there trying to steal money, but who knows, he could be. Seems more likely that he's the type of guy that somebody would take advantage of.
Absolutely. I think for all these charities, again, if you really cared about the vulnerable, whether on the right, left, apolitical, whatever, you'd say, look, every time there's a natural disaster, every time there's a challenge, people, even Nancy Pelosi will probably part with some of the money for her next plastic surgery. What?
That's what I'm saying. I just saw that. That's outrageous. Sovereign immunity.
They don't have sovereign immunity.
But what is sovereign immunity?
I'm not an expert, but I doubt they have sovereign immunity.
Judicial Watch is challenging an attempt by the U.S. Capitol Police to block the watchdog organization's federal lawsuit to gain access to videos. So it's a FOIA lawsuit that they're saying they don't have to respond to. No, I've actually read that before, that the U.S. Capitol Police does not respond to FOIA.
Again, that needs to change.
I agree. I don't even think we should have a U.S. Capitol Police, and particularly given how incompetent they are.
Do you see the typo in this article?
I didn't even read the whole thing.
First line. Where's the period after S?
Yeah, it's gone. Good spot, Charles.
Got to have some talents.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think this mess is just out of control. I mean, the good news here is I think that the average person who is taking care of families, taking care of friends or whatever, taking care of themselves, has reached a point, I think, of information overload.
Oh, yeah.
Of lack of belief that the poopmeisters really know what's going on, lack of interest in hearing about some new foreign project or grand scheme.
Destroying Ukraine?
Yeah, or
that's the new project.
Give us all your money. Let's borrow 3 times the current debt to go stop the planet from imploding, when our portion of the planet here, and I know we can't live without the whole planet, but our portion of the planet is minuscule.
And doing badly.
Yeah, 30% of the surface of the Earth is land. 70% is water. The United States is a big country. We're a tiny sliver of the total globe. And the last thing we need is that angry skull barmaid with the thin skin, AOC, who's actually being sort of taken to task. You see, she temporarily dropped off of Twitter because she was getting too many nasty tweets sent her way.
Well, why didn't all those people get blocked like I just did for talking about Whoopi Goldberg? I saw some dumb video that she was making where she was putting on makeup and talking about how wearing makeup was like objectifying women. Yeah, this is it. She's talking about how there's some study that women who come into the office with more makeup on are paid higher. And so she's saying that it's a patriarchal whatever, and she looks like she's drinking too much booze to me. Look at those bags under her eyes. She's a young woman. But she's putting on this makeup talking about how she's being objectified by men, and then she continues to put on the makeup. So I'm not sure
Again,
what the purpose of the video is.
Look at only 14,000 negatives.
Well,
I don't want to watch this, Jason.
it's 3 million views.
Sorry. Yeah.
You don't like the AOC makeup channel, Charles?
No.
Maybe she's got one about, how she does her hair. Watch that. Extensions.
Yeah,
I know you want to know.
Yeah,
Get the
exactly.
extensions.
Exactly.
You don't want the roots to be...
Exactly. Yeah, well, there's no joy in Mudville, I think, that,
Mighty Casey has struck out.
Well, I think amongst the Democrats and amongst the establishment Republicans, people are looking at this train wreck, and they know the ass whooping is going to be serious in November, and they just don't want to contemplate how bad it might be, and that so many are jumping ship. I mean, every week new Democrats decide not to run. I'm hopeful that Liz Cheney gets flattened in the. She's like Chelsea Clinton. I mean, Chelsea Clinton complaining. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but complaining that grifters on Substack. Here's
Berenson,
one of the most absurd grifters active today in life, complaining about other grifters. That other thief is stealing more money than I am. That's not fair.
Well, but I don't even know it's established that the guy that she was talking about was actually stealing money. This is just the go-to line for morons. Whenever I tell people they can become sponsors of the show by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, social engineers will say oh, he's grifting. But what's the explanation? I'm just offering people a subscription to an exclusive video content channel, and if they like it, they're getting good value. If they don't, they can cancel, and there's nothing. A grift is when you steal money from someone by representing that you're going to do something and then do something else.
Like the Clinton Foundation.
Like the Clinton Foundation. Or, you say you're going to detect inauthentic accounts with a certain tool, but then what you're actually doing is striking people's social media profiles, luring them into saying things that you can then say is a violation of the rules. Or, Charles, a lot of these rules are so broad that any statement of opinion could be cut a certain way to say, oh, this just violated this rule, and there are just so many rules. It's really terrible because, what's happening to Whoopi Goldberg, I really do not want to see people canceled from society or losing their jobs for saying stupid things. Losing your job, particularly if your job is relying on the public liking you, I think you should be allowed to say the stupidest thing you want to say. And then if people just stop watching The View, she's going to get fired or lose her job or whatever. So I don't really appreciate the whole fire Whoopi Goldberg for saying that. Oh, we also forgot to mention that Crosby, Stills, and Nash have now said they want their music off of Spotify. So we just have this entire culture, instead of people standing up for other people's rights to express their opinions, their insights, their ideas. People want to crush anything that they disagree with, wipe it off the internet, erase it forever, so that I want Whoopi Goldberg to stay there and become the biggest laughing stock of the world.
Pretty far down that path.
Right.
Pretty far down that path.
But I don't know, I think we're done. I can detect by the...
Well, I can see the clock, so...
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. I've got Lee Stranahan tonight. We're going to talk a bit about Fox News, and I suspect it's going to focus on the role that they play in, everything that's happening right now with this propaganda here in the United States to cause us all to believe that there's an imminent danger in Ukraine that somehow is our business to get involved in, and we have to. It's stating the obvious, Charles. We've heard these reports of millions of people, the size of cities in the United States, immigrating illegally, being sent all over the country to places we don't know. We don't know their health status. We don't know their criminal records. And we're worried about the border of Ukraine?
I'm not.
I'm not either. But anyway, I'll see everybody tonight with Lee Stranahan. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to become a sponsor. I really need your help in fighting this lawfare. It's intensifying. I know who complained about that or who was sitting on the Twitter account waiting I think it's that I said Whoopi Goldberg is ignorant. And somehow that's become offensive to a particular protected group. But being ignorant just means you don't know about something. And if you make a comment about something that you don't know about, that's ignorance.
Being ignorant is being a member of Congress.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I'll see everybody later. Thank you, Charles, for a great